The Raptors pick up the dub off the back of an incredible performance from hometown kid AJ Lawson, pouring in a career high. Let's go to the film room. So AJ Lawson poured in 32 points, a career high for himself. His last career high was 17 points before this one. And I think it was a combination of the ridiculous shooting that he had, was just on fire from behind the arc. Knocking down shots from above the break, which really got him going. But he was able to show off that shooting ability from pretty much everywhere on the floor, knocking down this corner three. And then a little bit later, in transition, knocking down from the opposite corner. Does a good job on this action of shaking up when RJ Barrett drives to create that opening for the pass and knock down that three. And then in this moment, knocks down the three. He was just hitting every single shot he had the opportunity to, which was a massive part of it. And RJ was a huge part of that. He assisted on 8 shots tonight for AJ Lawson. And Lawson in this one finished it off with an exclamation point with this unreal dunk off the back cut. And so AJ had a really, really impressive game, folks. It was awesome. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to sort of take a look at some of these G League guys who are getting more run over this extended period, to look at AJ Lawson, to look at Colin Castleton, and to look at Rhoden in this video, because, truthfully, we're probably going to see a lot of those guys over the last final stretch of this Raptors season, and it's a huge opportunity for them. I know tanking and everything outside, it is a massive opportunity individually for these guys to make a name for themselves, not only with the Toronto Raptors, but to make a name for themselves around the league, and to put people on notice, because you don't really get these type of opportunities when you're a guy who's in the G. Yes, AJ Lawson is an all-star level player in the G, just made the G League Next Up game, which is basically their all-star game. He's been phenomenal for the 905 all season. 905 are really missing him, by the way. Hasn't played in the last few games. The 905 has slid to 9 losses in a row. And so they miss his scoring punch. They miss that creation. He is incredible in transition as well. And we've seen some moments here over the last little bit, but he is a shot maker. And I think that's the intriguing piece moving forward with this team. How does AJ fit in with this Raptors, in the future? I'm not necessarily sure, because that is a pretty stacked group that they have between Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, Ochai Agbaji. Maybe they end up drafting another guy at that similar position. I know Samson on his live was talking about how in the range of where the Raptors are at right now, there are a lot of shooting guards. You think of VJ Edgecombe, you think of Trey Johnson, even Kasparis, who's a ball handler but can play a little bit of two. Those are all guys who admittedly play the 2-guard position. And so how does AJ Lawson play into this? How does he factor into the future of this Raptors team? I'm not necessarily sure, but in terms of sticking in the league, he is immensely talented at scoring the ball. He is a proficient G League scorer. And if he can do the other elements, if he can provide more, he had 12 rebounds tonight just because, for what it's worth, the Raptors had a franchise record. I believe it ended up being like 72 rebounds, the most rebounds they've had in franchise history. The last time they've had like 60 plus or 70 plus was in 1999. So a historic rebounding night for the Raptors, and an easy one against the Washington Wizards. But AJ Lawson still corralled 12 rebounds tonight. He's hit a few big shots for this Raptors team in his stretch here. Obviously, you remember that Magic game where he hit 2 huge shots. This game, he hit a couple of big shots as well. In their first game against the Wizards, he hit a couple of big shots in that fourth quarter. And so he's a big shot taker. It really just depends on how consistent he can be this for the Raptors, and how much opportunity the Raptors will be able to provide for him moving forward with this team, heading into the summer, heading into Summer League. But there's no question that there's a place for him in the NBA. And a guy who can put the ball through the hoop like that definitely can ball out. What his potential is moving forward, I think it's on refining the other areas of the game, because he absolutely can score the ball. Let's talk about a couple of other guys who need to refine their games, but also bring different elements than AJ Lawson does as a scorer. Let's start with Colin Castleton first, who's still on a 10-day with the Raptors. So Colin Castleton has showed off a pretty decent touch in and around the basket, crashing the offensive glass for these tip-ins, but also just being kind of handsy and understanding to be where and be in the right spots on most moments. Again, opportunistic shot making for Colin Castleton, but he does have a soft touch around the basket, and when he's given time, he can get it going. But ultimately, he lacks in the vertical athlete department, and so he gets stuffed in and around the rim often. It's tough for him to get vertical and create an advantage that way, and so he's not the strongest guy, especially against other guys. You see him get blocked by Alex Sarr here, and so I could see Castleton being more of like this short roll playmaker type. We haven't seen too much of his playmaking yet, truthfully, and I remember that was sort of a sell for him in Summer League when I watched him, and I kind of want to see more of that aspect. So he's not necessarily a jump out the gym type of big. He's not a guy who can like dunk on your head. And so he's not that vertical athlete that can be, dominating inside on the interior. But in the short roll area, maybe there's a world in which he can be really nice with that floater bag. If they send two to the ball, he can be in the short roll and make a pass or make a play somewhere. I want to see him in that area more often towards the end of this little run for him, whether that be, they extend him for another 10 days or not. But really good stuff from Colin Castleton so far. I kind of just want to see more, truthfully. And for me, I think right now the Raptors, and for what it's worth, they're trying to figure out what this relationship looks like what kind of player he can specifically be. They've gotten a lot of good out of Orlando Robinson. I think Orlando Robinson has been really impressive in the time that he's played for the Raptors. He is experimenting. He's taking more threes now, but I really like the rim protection that Robinson provides. I like the length. He's just a massive human being, and so it's easy for him to be effective on the defensive end. Somewhat slow-footed at times, so quicker guards can beat him, but ultimately you see him use his size pretty functionally, and I think he actually provides a baseline for the Raptors a little bit when Jakob Poeltl is off the floor. There's still a lot of room to grow for Orlando Robinson, especially on the offensive end. But when comparing that to Colin Castleton, who's a very different type of big man, I want to see Castleton work more as a playmaker. I want to see him with the ball in his hands a little bit more to see how his decision-making is. And I think that's the next step for Colin Castleton if the Raptors decide to continue with this partnership, if you will. All right, let's talk about Jared Rhoden. Probably, honestly, the guy I'm most intrigued by in this group. All right, so Jared Rhoden has been a play finisher of sorts for the Toronto Raptors, knocking down shots. He's able to finish in transition as well. Tonight, he was mostly a three-point shooter. He was 3 of 9 and had only one shot inside the paint, which was funny. But generally, he was able to seize the moment by making these very crucial shots. But in the first game against Washington, he showed off a little bit more offensively. Again, finishing in transition, being a guy who can be a play finisher for them, and in transition, getting opportunities to finish in and around the basket and use that athleticism. I think one kind of thing is functional athleticism versus the direct type of athleticism. As you see on these two transition possessions, when there's an open lane, he's able to seize the moment because he has a bit of a runway and he can actually run to the opportunity, give him that, head start, if you will. But when it's on a standstill, when he's trying to create a shot off the bounce, it's a little bit harder for him to get separation. So I think that's the interesting part with Jared Rhoden. It's like, how much more is on the bone with that guy? Because, if you think of like your prototypical wing types, I can't remember his exact size, but truthfully, he looks like he can hang in the NBA physically. So how do you heighten that ability? That's the thing I'm intrigued by with Jared Rhoden. And if we're talking about development here, like this is what the final little bit's going to be. And if Rhoden's going to get opportunity, how does he look as a guy cutting to the basket? The Raptors run tons of cutting actions. If he gets a head start and cuts backdoor, maybe that allows him to create momentum and finish better at the basket. The three-point shooting has been impressive so far, but can he be even more potent above the break instead of just knocking down corner threes? That's the type of stuff I'm looking for from Jared Rhoden. Look, obviously AJ Lawson right now is the better player, but I think for what the Raptors might be looking for, if Rhoden can really lock in on the defensive end, there's a world in which they might want to look for him to be a part of the team next season. Again, depending on how things kind of shake out with the roster during the summer. This is all very, very extremely fluid. But that being said, they obviously signed him to a two-way contract. That contract carries over into next season. He'll be fighting for a camp spot, likely with an opportunity to play for the 905 again. And I'm very curious to see how that looks, how he can develop, and how much more opportunity these guys can get for the following, 18, 17, whatever amount of games the Raptors have to develop. Ultimately, this is the way the Raptors are moving forward, whether it's wins and losses and figuring out how to, kind of game the system standing wise. That's a different conversation and maybe an interesting conversation to have. But as far as individual development for AJ Lawson, I'm looking for him to be a more impactful player everywhere outside of scoring. So it's the playmaking, it's maybe locking in more defensively and being a guy who can get into passing lanes. For Colin Castleton, it's being in the short roll more, using the ball and trying to create for others more often. And then for Jared Rhoden, it's like, how much more is there that he can do on the wing for you? And can he buy into the system where he's actually like being an athlete off of the ball? That's kind of the thing I'm curious about for Jared Rhoden. So this is going to be an interesting little stretch for the Toronto Raptors. This is a very interesting little stretch. So the Nets lost. The Nets won tonight. I'm so used to saying lost. The Nets won tonight. They beat the Lakers without LeBron James, which was a massive win for the Toronto Raptors. The Sixers lost to the Hawks tonight, and so there's a little bit of a battle going on. The Raptors are a half a game ahead, if you will, in the lottery standings with the Nets and Sixers. The next game for the Toronto Raptors is against the Philadelphia 76ers. They also play the Utah Jazz after this. And then their schedule gets a little bit difficult for about a week or so. But these next two games are pretty important games for the gamesmanship aspect of things. Because, let's say they play Philly, they play Utah, and then after that, it's Portland, it's Phoenix, it's Golden State. Again, three teams who are looking to win. Portland, I think, is trying to see if they can sneak into a play-in spot. Phoenix, obviously, fighting for their life right now, and Golden State is rolling with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. San Antonio, another team that's kind of headed to a different direction, but still. And then it gets easy, man. Then it gets easy again with Washington, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Philly, Chicago. So it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know how it's going to work, but admittedly, I do think over this last little bit, the last 2 or 3 games, we're seeing what the recipe the Raptors will have moving forward will be, where it's kind of like a mix of a couple of their starters. Tonight, no Jakob Poeltl, but everybody else on their starting lineup was available. Obviously, no Jacoby Walter either, and Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji. And so Jared Rhoden was able to slip in and start for the Raptors tonight. Got his first NBA start, by the way. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But it does seem like the Raptors have created a bit of a formula where a couple of their starters will play. They'll stagger their starters heavily. For the most part tonight, it was like Scotty and Quick together. And RJ was in that lineup a few times. And so, like, they've been trying to flow in these two-way guys and rotational, G League guys to kind of, I guess, stagger the minutes a little bit and make these games more competitive than they probably would be if they played a full roster healthy. We'll see how that works for the next little bit. I'm very curious to see how that shakes out because as things stand, the Raptors have a very, very easy schedule. And so it will require that level of gamesmanship. But same time, there's development to be focused on. AJ Lawson, hooping. Awesome game for the guy who, grew up here. And a big game and a big moment for these other guys. Big opportunity for Orlando Robinson. Big opportunity for Jamison Battle, who got hurt and came back into the game tonight. Big opportunity for Jared Rhoden. Big opportunity for Colin Castleton. These guys are getting their chance, man. And so I don't want to take that for granted because these guys aren't taking that for granted. They understand the moment. They understand what they're playing for. And so while for me and you, it might be just, well, let's see what will happen. Let's fast forward to the end of April and see where the Raptors land in the standings. For these guys, this is a very, very important basketball. And, AJ tonight made it count. Folks, as always, like, comment, subscribe, do the things you guys usually do to make sure this goes to other people. Appreciate you guys supporting Raptors Republic. We'll see you guys for the recap on Wednesday versus the Sixers. Peace out.